That's the KP2 version, that's the HH2 version. And unfortunately, I wasn't there in the last meeting where they made a decision. I was watching live on my drive home, and I was so elated and ecstatic that the committee decided that my recommendation was the right one for Santa Clara. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why in a minute and 40 seconds. As you all know, Santa Clara is a very integrated city. It's very difficult to draw a line that doesn't split people. And yes, for people that are concerned about Koreatown, it is splitting the businesses that are along El Camino, that are on the north and the south of El Camino. But businesses aren't where people live, and Koreans live everywhere in the city. The nice thing about this map, which I'll tell you in a minute and 10 seconds, is that with this map, you could potentially have, again, assuming that people in Santa Clara vote solely based on race, and I don't believe that, but for the purposes of the law, that's what you look for. You could potentially end up with 2 Asian Americans and 1 Hispanic American on the council with this line. I'm very proud of that. The other thing, there were some questions about why couldn't the line just run all the way down El Camino, or why is that sliver? It is to keep the balance of the population. You have to be within 5% of the population from one district to the next. Now, if you ran the line right down El Camino, it would work for the 2010 census. But it's possible, or actually very likely, that in the 2020 census, which is in 2 years, that we'll have to redraw the line again. So that sliver that is down Lawrence, which is still a major thoroughfare, likely we won't need to change the line in 2020. When the north side growth does take off post-2020, in 2030, it's likely that you'll be able to just simply continue the line down El Camino, and you'll have a very clean District 1 and District 2. And so I'm very proud of that line. For anybody who says this is gerrymandering, imagine what if you had to draw 6 districts or 7 districts. This is the cleanest line that you can draw in the city, and we're very lucky that half of the city lives north of El Camino and the other half lives south of El Camino, and it still empowers minorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Timing's impeccable. Okay. Anyone else, please come forward.
How can I resist? I notice how good I've been up until now.
It's wondering.
Yeah, this whole thing about Koreatown, though. There's a gentleman who is adamantly in favor of creating a Koreatown. And I decided to go looking myself. And I went looking to see if there's any place in the city where there is enough of a cluster where you could say this is Koreatown. I went so far as to stop and talk to some store owners in shopping centers, in whatever malls, not malls, but strip centers, where there were predominantly Korean stores. And then I asked them, well, how would you feel if this were made a Koreatown? And they said, but it's not. We are not Korean. And so from my perspective, and I didn't do it officially, but I did, I think, a fairly careful job of wandering around looking. There is no one place that you can say this pocket represents this population. We're all over the place. And I think that's wonderful that we're all over the place. But I think we need to take that into account when drawing lines.
Thank you. Please come forward. Good evening.
Well, I'm Kevin Park, so. Anyways, so I've run for city council 2 times, and to be honest, I've never run as a minority candidate because I don't actually feel oppressed by a majority. I've actually grew up as an American, I was born in America, and to be honest, if you ask my wife or you ask my mother and my father, they'd say he's not Korean. But that being said, I do understand the Korean community, and I want to become more part of the Korean community, and I do know that there may not be a Koreatown except on Google Maps and Bing Maps and all the maps that engineers get to decide what the names are, but there is a division of where people do live and work and consider. So the division I was looking at and the separations I wanted were not diversity of ethnicity, but diversity of thought. And that being the case, I put up KP1 and KP2. And for full disclosure, Fair Vote also came up with RJ1, which very closely follows mine. I think that does for a reason. right? For every complex problem, there is a simple answer, a straight line across El Camino, which is, simple and wrong. And I think that in this case, it does split the two groups that I know where my votes came from. I know where the votes came from opposition for things like Measure J. I do know where votes came from for people like Mohammed Nadeem, for Karen Hardy. And I think that what we want to do is we want to kind of separate, we want to create pockets where we have diversity of thought. I don't really care about the ethnicities as much, but if you take a look at the KP1 and KP2, you will see that it does preserve the west and east sides of El Camino. I mean, that addresses the problem that was brought up earlier. It does address that problem. And again, the one that we have now actually does a disservice to Asians by, if there are two Asians running in the Southern District, they cannot win. They will split the vote, and they do not have enough votes to win. And I want you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, council. Do we have any other speakers? Councilmember Colston.
Thanks, Mayor. I hope this isn't too shocking to the council, but I agree with Mr. Haggag. The city voters of Santa Clara should decide this issue. I also trust the recommendation of the Charter Review Committee. I also think the city staff showed great wisdom in their staff report by recommending no recommendation for the council in this regard. And I think we should, as a council, take no position on this issue. I think this might backfire on us. The citizens might see the council endorsing this recommendation and vote against it because they don't trust politicians. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I think as individuals, if someone wanted to support it, that'd be great. But as a council, I think we should put it on the ballot and let the voters decide, like Mr. Haggag said, and like the Charter Review Committee recommended, and like the staff recommended by making no recommendation.
What's on now is just, Councilmember Kolstad, the ordinance approving the ad hoc committee district's recommended district boundary map. We haven't gotten to the part about the recommendation yet. So it's just and designations of District 1 and 2.
I completely
I know that was
understand
half
that.
your-
I don't think we should take a position on this boundary map. I think we should let the voters make up their own mind.
We have to give the voters some, let me talk city attorney. Okay. Give them a map. Yeah.
You were here, I just want to make sure you understand there's going to be another decision later about whether or not the council wants to endorse Measure A. But you were on the council that charged the district committee to come up with a map to bring back to you to recommend for you to adopt. The charter amendment you voted to put on the ballot. The charter amendment presupposed that we would have a map to tell the voters what the districts would be. So all you would be doing by voting for a map, we're not recommending one map or another map, we're just telling you that the committee that you asked to draw a map for you to adopt has come back to you with a recommendation. So all in this first vote that we're asking you to do is either follow their recommendation for this map or some other map, but not whether or not you're endorsing Measure A.
And I guess I wasn't clear. I completely understand that.
Okay.
I agree with the map that the committee presented to us.
But
And
you understand, though, the voters will not be voting on a map. It's only the council that can vote for a map. Okay.
yes, but I likewise think that only the voters, not the council, should step up and make a recommendation as to how to vote on the issue when Measure A goes to the ballot.
Yeah, those are two separate things. So that's the second part of the first part of the motion is just the map.
Right.
Yeah. Correct? Yes. And we're only talking about the map right now and the ordinance for the map.
Yeah, there are 3 items on this agenda item. The First one is, do you want to adopt the ordinance drawing the map?
Right.
That's it.
That's all we're doing right now.
And,
That's
and the
first,
sequencing.
Right?
Right.
Okay. So that's what's up right now. Councilmember Mahan?
Thank you. Actually, to me, there's only and always one Santa Clara. And I understand that it's either going to be divided north and south or east and west. I mean, it's pretty obvious. And if you look at, if you look at our one Santa Clara, there are geographic areas that are sort of known by their location, like the old quad. You know that's where the old houses are, the university is. It's where Santa Clara started. There's the north side, which, for many, many years was purely agricultural. There's the west side, where all the housing tracts went up. So in terms of trying to divide the city into districts, to me, it only makes sense. You either go north and south, or you go east and west. And KP2 essentially goes east and west. The committee's recommendation goes north and south. And if you look at those dividers, El Camino is the logical north-south divider. San Tomas is the logical east-west divider, because it sort of divides up the areas of our growth and development geographically. Now, that could have a bearing on the populations that live in those areas. It could not. I know Santa Clara is very well integrated and very diverse in all of its areas. So it's very hard to draw a map that may satisfy the CVRA by calling out enclaves, if you will, pockets where voters will be primarily and predominantly of an inclination to vote for a particular candidate. So to me, I think it's as good as any, and I really applaud the committee for taking the time to look at all of the options. So I'll support this map division, and I am glad that it's just going to the ordinance procedure and not to the charter change procedure, because then in order to change these boundaries ever in the future, we'd have to go back to a charter amendment. And it's much more efficient to do it through an ordinance, which can be changed depending on the outcome of our census, depending maybe on the outcome of the election. If this doesn't have the results that the CVRA is after, then, maybe we can look at changing the districts in a different way. So thank you, committee, for your hard work, and I think this map is probably as good a start as any.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill?
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I think Kevin Park left, because I was kind of intrigued by his question or his point about.
Back.
Oh, he's back. So, your comment about that, that somehow that there would be better or more diversity of thought by adopting one of KP1 or KP2. Oh.
No, not from the audience, please. Thank
So
you.
I didn't really get that, and I believe me, I encourage diversity of thought, and unfortunately sometimes, that's one of the things that they keep talking about these days in our country is that, we're becoming tribal is the latest thing, and that we're all, getting into our groups and not necessarily just on race, but maybe more on just on what you do for a living, or those kinds of issues, how much money you make. So I would hope that we could do a lot of things to foster diversity of thought, because that's how you truly, in any enterprise, whether it's social or commercial or whatever, you end up with a better result. It's my experience. So that part of it, I didn't, the diversity of thought based on the line. In terms of, I agree with what Councilmember Mahan said, but Councilmember Kolstad, the line on El Camino, that's like kind of drawing a line between the business district. I don't think that's, even though I remember from different precinct walks for elections, people who were registered to vote like in restaurants and dry cleaning shops, which was kind of interesting. So I don't really see that's splitting a residential block, our community. We are starting to get some residents along El Camino in the apartments, which are not very popular with some segments of our population. But I don't know what the ethnic makeup of the people who are moving into those newer developments on El Camino. So, to me, the cleanest line is the one that was recommended. And I guess I just haven't heard enough of a compelling reason, why the one that was mentioned from Fair Vote, or one of the ones that Kevin did, why they would be superior. So unless I can hear something about that, I would tend to support the recommendation, just because of I like the thought that it may be almost anticipating where growth will be in the next few years, so that we wouldn't have to do redistricting until, say, 2030. So that has appeal to me. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with a lot of the comments that have been made. And just as another thought, I was thinking about how we go to the DARE programs and all the different schools, and every one of those schools, I mean, there is such diversity in each one of those schools, north and south of those lines. And so, I mean, it's just, again, points out how, the ethnicity in our city is so spread. It is so diverse. I think this is a great place to draw this line, and there will still be, representation from every ethnicity in the city. Every ethnicity will have the opportunity to run for office. And so, so thank you for all the time that you put into putting that line together. So I'm going to support that map.
Public comment is closed at this time. Sorry. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Committee, I want to thank you for doing all this work, because I know that we do not have pockets of anybody anywhere, which is, different from other states. But at the same time, the lines were intentionally put there because it anticipated growth in our city. And now that's an ordinance, it's easier. It's not a charter change. I think that we're going to have, another coming of the, what did you say, 2030? You were kind of looking at that? Okay. So it was a lot of work, and I understand, but I was at a meeting and basically was told I was living in the old quad and I was a white, rich person. And it was amazing to just hear this rhetoric of racism, and especially being married to a black man, that was kind of like really nasty. So all I want to say is, what's happening out in our community needs to stop, whatever this rhetoric is out there. You guys did a wonderful job, because this is something that Santa Clara needs. We are one city. We know we're going to divide it into 2 districts, but at the same time, I think people have to understand this is the way it's going to be. Ranked choice voting will be part of this eventually. And the reason, I was also heard the reason of the decision of having it on the June ballot. I totally get this. We need to set this up for future ballots and future elections. So I was really not happy with what happened, and but I think that you did a tremendous job in taking our city and looking at it in a cross section. I know El Camino, that seems to be an issue. I understand Kevin's philosophy. That's true. We do think a lot different, and it depends. But we can't make that decision at the ballots, because everybody's going to have a different philosophy on why they want to vote for a person. We don't control that. So I think I'm supporting this. I think you did a lot of hard work on this, and I think that the residents of this city will agree with these lines. So I think that going forward, and thank you, Hassam, for everything that you did for this, but I hope that some of this rhetoric is going to end. And I appreciate everything that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other council comments. I'll just make a couple of sentences here. I want to thank the Charter Review Committee, because I think this was a really tough job. Santa Clara is a unique city. We're very diverse throughout the city. And I want to thank the committee that worked on drawing the lines, because it was a tough process. It looks easy just going across El Camino, but because we are so diverse and trying to really create districts that, that are equal in a sense, that will actually, you know, if truly is the goal is to get, you know, the Asian population here up in the council, and we're really trying to achieve that goal. If the goal is to get that to happen, this is the way it's going to happen. And this was a decision all the way through the Charter Review Committee that our council gave absolutely no direction to the Charter Review Committee, to the District Boundary Committee. It was all a community-driven process, and I think people need to know that. There was no instructions from the council. You had free rein to do whatever the committee wanted, and we allowed anyone who wanted to serve on the committee to be on the committee. I think that's important too. They weren't handpicked committee members by the council. We did select some, but anybody who applied was able to serve on the committee. And there was so many meetings and so much community outreach. And I have personally seen a lot of members that are upset about the way this process happened, but yet did not participate when there were so many opportunities to participate. So I just needed to get that out there, because there are some people that I've seen saying, you know, what are you doing? We had people that actually were appointed to charter review committees that quit and now are complaining about what we did. And that makes no sense to me at all. But I really want to thank you, because it was a community-driven process. So this is a map created by Santa Clarans for Santa Clara. And so I really think that's important, and you did a fantastic job. I know you spent a lot of time and effort on this, and we really appreciate it, and our community appreciates it. So I'm going to support. Was there a motion?
I think Teresa? Patty?
Patty, was there a motion? Is there a second? Second. All right, so if you can call for the question here, and please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much. The next item we have is a recommendation for
Actually, we still have presentation.
two more items,
yeah.
right? Yes, thank you. Go
so
ahead.
So our acting city clerk will review the voter outreach plan.
Thank you.
So as the presentation comes back up, I'll just say, as the acting elections official, it's very important that the messaging that comes from the city clerk's office is neutral and unbiased. And so it's purely educational and outreach, but not any level of advocacy whatsoever. I'll keep talking while the presentation comes up. So just a reminder, of course, the ballot question is to establish 2 districts starting in 2018 to be represented by 3 council members each, and when available, use ranked choice voting to allow voters to select candidates in order of choice to determine the winners of elections for all city elected officers. And so this would be amending the charter election provisions. This is proposed section 700.2, method of elections. And this is where the 2 districts would be established. And each district, as I said, would be represented by 3 council members. There would be some level of transition, because in 2018, we would elect 2 members to 4-year terms in District 1 based off of the sequencing. Whoops. That you just approved. And in 2020, elect 1 member to a 2-year term to District 1 and 3 members to 4-year terms in District 2. And then in 2022, you would elect 3 council members to District 1, and in 2024, elect 3 council members to District 2. So the transition period being obviously from November 2018, and then it really, what we say, catches up in 2022, where you would then be 3 council members in each district. so I'll just, this is the part that I just talked about, but this is where, this is the actual proposed language that would change in the city charter should Measure A pass. So ranked choice voting is part of the ballot question, and this would be implemented by ordinance when the registrar of voters makes it available. So we've talked a lot about how we really rely on the registrar to have the technology implemented in order to have ranked choice voting. Specialized technology would need to be in place, and they have indicated that it would not be available in November 2018. So our November 18 election would just simply be the same voting method that we have right now. Single transferable vote, form of ranked choice voting. So voters would be able to rank their candidates in order of preference, and voters can rank as many or as few voters as they want to. The votes are counted to ensure that as many votes as possible help to elect a candidate that they support. So different thresholds would be in place. In 2018, like I mentioned, there is no ranked choice voting, so that would just be our current method of voting. Ranked choice voting would be dependent, again, on the registrar implementing it. They have indicated that it may be available in 2020, but again, the ballot measure question is worded so that it gives flexibility should they not be available in 2020, that we would just do it as soon as they are able to implement that voting method. So in 2020, which would be a presidential election, then 4 council member seats would be on the ballot. District 1 would have the threshold of 50% plus 1 vote for 1 seat, and District 2 would be 25% plus 1 for 3 seats. So obviously a different percentage threshold because you're having multiple candidates in District 2. In 2022, which would be the gubernatorial election, then you would have 3 council member seats on the ballot for District 1. So again, it would be the 25% plus 1 vote for the 3 seats. And then likewise for 2024, again, going back to presidential election, 3 council member seats on the ballot for District 2. The mayor, chief of police, and city clerk would always have the same threshold of 50% plus 1 because there would only be 1 successful candidate for the seat. So Measure A information, a separate web page was created on the city's website, santaclaraca.gov/Measure A. The recommended map has been posted, as Dr. Gobele had mentioned earlier, in city facilities. So here at City Hall, outside the city clerk's office, Central Library, Northside Library, Community Recreation Center, and the Senior Center, along with a flyer on how to get more information. There is an interactive map on this webpage, on Measure A's webpage, that allows residents to input their address to be able to determine whether they're in District 1 or District 2. This is just a sample of what the map looks like and the flyer that goes along with it. Again, directing anyone who would like more information to the Measure A webpage. An educational direct mail piece went out to residents last week, and we're in the middle of creating a second educational piece, which will go to print tomorrow. Utility bill inserts, which provided information about all of the public hearings and the meetings that were held by the district committee, ad hoc committee, and the district's website, and encouraged residents to register to vote before the June election went out. And again, information has been posted on the city's social media channel, Government Access Channel 15, and also provided on anyone who has AT&T Channel 99. This is a sample of what the educational mailer looked like. It was sent to all residents in the city of Santa Clara. And because the voting deadline to register to vote is coming up, the next mailer piece will be going to registered voters. And that concludes my report.
Okay, is there any questions, Ms. Yamaguma, on that? Okay, seeing none from the council, is there any member of the public wanting to speak on this issue? Please come forward.
Steve Chesson, President of Californians for Electoral Reform. One of the questions that the opponents of Measure A have frequently asked me is what kind of outreach did the council do to the Asian American community in establishing the Charter Review Committee? And frankly, I don't know what the answer is to that. But I do think it's important that you take your outreach materials, especially what goes on the website, and translate it into languages that are spoken by various ethnic minorities in the community so that we can demonstrate that, yes, we are trying to reach out to members of protected groups, ethnic minorities, and people who do not speak English as their first language. So I strongly suggest that you do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Nadine?
I think that's a great recommendation. We'll go back and see what we can do to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much for that. Anyone else?
Hussam Hayag here. I'm very happy, and I think from the comments that I said earlier tonight, I'm very happy that the city is putting out an educational, doing educational outreach for the voters for them to really understand the issue in an unbiased way. Yes, of course, I want Measure A to pass. I was on the committee that recommended it. Obviously, you saw the district line was my recommendation. I obviously am biased. But it's great for voters to read and learn about what the measure is from an unbiased perspective. The flyers that you're seeing coming from the opposition is extremely misleading, and there are blatant lies on there. And it's the Yes on A is a grassroots movement. We don't have a lot of money. We're just Santa Clarans who are advocating for what's best for our city. And we've seen what it takes in other elections when you have outside groups, trying to influence Santa Clara elections. So I'm really happy that the city is promoting educational, unbiased information. And I truly believe that when voters understand the issue and when they read and figure out all the deliberations that the committee put in and the heart and soul that the committee went through to really bring diversity to have our council reflect the diversity, the beautiful diversity that is in our city, that they'll agree that Measure A is the right choice, even when they read it from an unbiased source. They will see all of the different accommodations that Measure A does for the different districts, for the different ethnicities that are integrated in the city, and they'll understand that ranked choice voting does give underserved voices, even ideologies, ethnicities, economic, your economic status. It gives everybody a voice and it gives everybody a say, and people will love it. So I'm glad that the city is putting out that educational, unbiased information, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Welcome back.
My pleasure. As an advocate for Measure A and a believer in that the voting system that we put forward, coming from a country that actually has a voting system that works like that, I'm concerned, and I'm really glad that the city is taking something on to educate the people here, because it is something new and it is something different, and there's going to be a lot of fear, and I am fearful that the fear will be spread through measures of dark money and manipulation, especially the young, to think that this is an ill-advised situation. And perhaps from people that don't even live in our city, who don't understand our city. It was very hard for us as a committee to divide the city. We all felt that we were a small enough city that we didn't need division, and I feel Patty's pain. I did not believe in that at all. Yet we felt we had to, there were people lurking in the background, creating havoc that required this to happen. So we are where we are, and we want you as our representatives to endorse and to speak up proudly of this transition that will make a difference to our city, and we strongly believe. And if it doesn't, you know what? It may come back. May come back, and it may come back to look something else. And that's the beauty of being able to vote in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Please come forward.
Well, it's Kevin Park again. I know what you're thinking. Is that a water ball in your pocket, or am I just happy to see you? Well, here we are. So I will say this, for everyone that's
Wrong day
watching,
to say that.
For this, I'm just kind of upset that Caserta wasn't here to see that, but anyway. For everyone that's on the fence about ranked choice voting, I'm going to say I support ranked choice voting 100%. I think that there are several ways to do it, and there is no perfect system, but I think that the system here is a very workable system. But I will say again, I'm very disappointed in the districts that have been selected. And I do feel, and I've got numbers, it's not just a feeling, I've actually run numbers to the point where everyone that's come up here, some of them even to support me, have yelled at me and caused a lot of arguments because they said, well, you are a duty head. But I do want to say, for the people that are on the fence, ranked choice voting is a good thing. I am not very happy about the division of the districts. And I do hope that in 2020, 2021, when we get the new census numbers, we will do a real and a deeper look into what the districts are. I participated in the county district redistricting in 2011. This was for down in San Jose and the Japantown. And I will say that so much more work and so much more education went into that, where we talked about these are the different voices, these are the different types of things. We looked at how people voted. We looked at lots of maps. None of that happened. I feel like we did the bare minimum, the legal minimum, the standard that below which we have a bigger lawsuit. And I would like to see this kind of process repeated and done better the next time, and not 12 years from now, but after the next census. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Okay, I have a couple council lights. Councilmember Mahan.
Thank you to our city clerk's office for preparing this and bringing it to our attention. My questions are, what is the distribution? How are these mailers going to be distributed? How many are there going to be? And what is the cost to the city?
This first mailer went to all households in Santa Clara, which includes information on how to register to vote. And then knowing that the deadline to register to vote is coming up, the second mailer, which was approved today to go to print, will start to be delivered to just registered households in Santa Clara beginning next week. The cost I don't have in front of me, but if you give me a minute, I'll look it up.
And just these two?
So we have these two educational pieces are what is being proposed for now. We could put together a smaller mailer. We've talked about putting together a smaller mailer just to encourage people to go out to vote. And that would go, again, just to registered voters, but maybe on a smaller postcard type size.
Would that include Measure A information, or would it just simply be a get out to vote card?
Mostly just to get out to vote. It would include that we have a Santa Clara ballot measure on, Measure A, but mostly just to get out to vote, not as much of the educational piece of it.
Okay. And I really appreciate those costs, because if you're doing a citywide mailer, that's pretty pricey. Print costs, mail costs, all of the costs combined. My fear is we have to sort of walk a fine line between doing real voter outreach and education and becoming simply a campaign tool or venue, or becoming campaign, actually sort of mounting a campaign to our city.
We have been diligent in making sure that we are providing and pushing out education information. We have experts who are professionals in providing and producing these materials, as well as our city attorney has been reviewing each document and participating in their development.
I agree
I carefully reviewed
and I agree, they're objective.
decision and
Can you
each,
let him speak, please?
I carefully reviewed each of the items that went out, everything that went out on the web page, and I, with exactly what you're talking about in mind, and I reviewed all of the court decisions with regard to this type of issue, and I was I edited quite heavily into some of the proposals to make sure that there was no advocacy taking place, that it was purely informational.
And I appreciate that, and I tend to agree. However, it is a fine line, and there's nothing, there's no counterpoint to any of the information that's gone out. But anyway, I'm also interested in the cost.
Maybe while you're looking those up, we can go to the other comments and questions. Councilmember O'Neill?
Okay, thank you. Well, there will be the opposing statements. I mean, I'm sympathetic to the comments that are being made. I mean, at least there are ballot statements that will be printed in, all the registered voters. At least I do believe that there were statements that were filed as rebuttals to the pro statement, and then there was a anti-statement filed. So the voters will have that, and obviously there are people out in the community that are doing campaigning and sending out information on the other side. So I think both sides will be doing campaigning outside of these informational pieces. So, and I appreciate that the city attorney is being very cognizant of the boundaries between information and advocacy. So I feel better about that. Oh, I forgot what else I was going to say. Oh, if it comes back to me, I'll let you know.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to address Mr. Chesson's question when he asked about how he picked people, that served on the Charter Review Committee. And I can tell you for myself personally, I picked a young woman who lives in the North Side, and she's of Filipino descent. And I had met with her not long after I came on the council, and met her and her family. They're very, very deep roots in Santa Clara, especially in the North Side. We're actually acknowledging her grandmother, her grandmother who just passed away yesterday. Lots of family, and she's very much engaged. She knows what's going on. She cares. She went to all the Santa Clara schools, and when I spoke with her and just saw her passion for her community and how she has deep roots, I said, this is the perfect candidate. And so that was why I picked her to serve on the Charter Review Committee. And she had a great time, and she did her part. She was very much engaged. So she was my choice, because I identified her as somebody who definitely would be a very good council member down the road. I have to say that I feel like, in this case, we as a council, I feel like we need to endorse this. We need to take the position and endorse this, because we're leaders, and people look to us as having the voice, and they want to hear how we feel about, different things. And this is something that's really important. This is going to have a tremendous impact on our city, and a positive impact on our city. When in 2016, when we had the 4 measures that were on the ballot, we supported all of them, and they passed with huge numbers. And I think a lot of it is because the people heard what we had to say. They saw the position that we took, and that was really important. And again, they were measures that were really well written by the Charter Review Committee that was put together. So I think that spoke volumes 2016, and frankly, I think by taking a position and endorsing Measure A, the council endorsing Measure A will again send that message, because I think the people, we are trying to engage the Asian American community. We're looking to get diversity on this council. And I think they need to hear it from us, that this is what we want. This is what we want for our city. This is important to us. And I think people really need to hear that from this council. So I am going to support endorsing Measure A, and when we're ready to make a motion, I'm happy to make a motion.
It's time.
Okay, well then I'm going to make a motion that we,
I'm like the president.
okay. Okay.
Councilmember Davis?
Oh, thank you. Along with that motion, city assistant, what, interim city clerk, what are you? I'm sorry, acting, I'm sorry. Jennifer, we have, in my, where I live, I have Mandarin, Vietnamese, Korean in my neighborhood. So I know that we have the ability for the 6 languages. Can we get that on the website in these materials? And I know you just said you approved something, but you didn't print it yet, right? Can you change and put language, change the languages?
So what we
Or
can do is
educational,
we'll
the
do
educational.
the translation of the services and absolutely have it
Okay.
available on the website. The
Okay.
second mailer was approved today, so it's at print, but
At print,
we
okay.
will make sure to get the translation available on the website.
Okay, because I know we have that capacity, we do have that.
Yes.
But I would like to have that done, because if you're going to put this educational materials out, I live in an extremely diverse neighborhood, so and I know when they get these in the mail, they would like it in their own language. So yes, Councilmember, Vice Mayor Watanabe, I support you on this, because education is extremely important to a lot of our residents. And I think that going forward, that this is the best way to do this. And I think, I agree with Vice Mayor, that we owe it to our residents to support it. We are, we may look the way we are, but we are totally diverse. And I think that that is a strong statement in our city. People from the outside don't know us. They are, I don't even think they understand our city. So this is a good way of getting the word out, and I hope that everybody will heed the warnings, that we don't want to listen to any rhetoric. We want our residents to vote. They did all this work as a grassroots community, fully diverse, and I hope that going forward, we're going to get a wonderful result at the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes, thank you. So the point I had wanted to make earlier was that there was some concerns raised about if we weren't really planning to do a review in 2020. I think the point that I was hoping to make was that, perhaps we wouldn't have to make too much adjustment, but certainly we will look at it. And actually, part of the reason what's driven things now is the very short time frames we've had to deal with. I think I have mentioned that I also have served on redistricting. One of the duties I have for one of the bodies that I serve on is to do the districting for the County Office of Education. And so we had to redistrict the entire county. And it took us a year. And we started down, we had demographers, we had attorneys, we had software. We started down a path, it got changed. And then, we took as long as we felt that we needed to make sure that we had heard everybody. But with our situation, we wanted to make, we're anxious to have a system in place that will return an even better result for Santa Clara than we've had before. Not to say that so I'm not putting down at all the councils that we've had, and I've been proud to serve on this council, but I look forward to a day when we, once again, that we have the diversity. I think we have the diversity of thought that Kevin Park talked about. I think that's evident a lot. So and when we bring those other elements of diversity, and it'll even be better. I just want to reassure people that certainly we will look at it, and if it turns out that the boundary line didn't work the way we wanted, we can change it. If it looks, if Kevin had additional insights that we didn't, about that, and we can go back and change the line, and by doing it in ordinance, it'll be easier for us to do, and we'll have more experience, and we'll have better data. And I think that will bring the result, and so I'm supportive of us taking a position to endorse.
Thank you. Do we have that information for
Yes.
Councilmember Mahan?
So I'd like to
Okay.
just have a caveat that what I have here are the quotes that were provided, so perhaps I can give the exact numbers through the city manager's blog. But for the first mailer, it was approximately $14,500, and then the second mailer would be approximately $8,000. Postage between the two would be about $10,000, so it's about $32,500.
It's normal. Sounds right.
Sorry, it was 10,000 for each printing?
For postage.
Oh, so those are the printing
For
costs
both.
you gave us first, and then the
Right, so the first mailer was 14,500. The second was 8,000, because that would be just to registered voters, and total postage is around $10,000.
Okay, thank you very much. Member Mayor, do you have additional comments?
Yes, on this current motion to endorse Measure A, you know, I may certainly have a personal opinion on Measure A, but I do not believe it's part of my official duty as a council member to tell people how to vote. In fact, I think it's an abuse of my power to try to influence the vote of our people. The ballot measure speaks for itself. People are free to read the ballot statements, pro and con. They're free to get all the research they want. They're free to talk to anyone they want. But it's not incumbent upon me, ever, to tell a voter how to vote, unless you're going to vote for me, but that's a different story. So on a ballot measure, especially one of this magnitude, when there's a lot of different opinions, when there were different options, frankly, than the one that is going forward on the ballot. So I think it's really irresponsible for a council as a whole in an official act to use their influence to tell people how to vote. So I'm not going to support this. I think it's wrong. It's just wrong. You don't understand sometimes the influence that this seat has, and I'm sorry. I'll wait till council members are at least paying attention. When you sit in this seat and people look up to you, we have influence, and it's influence that shouldn't be abused. I think we really need to let voters decide for themselves without our influence, without us telling them how to vote. So there's no way I'm going to, and I never have before. I've never endorsed a ballot measure that's going before the public from my position as a council member. And I'm not going to do it this time either. But I am happy to express my personal opinion outside of these chambers.
Okay, thank you. I'm actually going to support the motion. I think that this was a process that was created by our Charter Review Committee and voted on unanimously. It was brought to the City Council, who voted for it unanimously. We actually had 3 council members. We directed 3 council members to write the ballot measure in favor of Measure A. We've endorsed issues in the past. It's not unlike us to do that, and I think that Vice Mayor Watanabe placed it quite well, that we are leaders here on this council. We're elected to take leadership positions, and this is one of those leadership positions that we need to take. I think it's absolutely appropriate for us to take the position to endorse Measure A that was created by our community for our community without our direction and completely driven by our residents. So I'm in full support of Measure A, and on my own time will campaign in favor of Measure A because I think it's the best thing for our community, and I frankly think it's part of being a leader. So if we can call for the question, please. No, I'm sorry, it's closed. This is I'm sorry, but it's a motion on the floor to endorse Measure A. Thank you. So if we could call for the question, please. Please register your vote. And the endorsement of Measure A passes on a 4-2 vote. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the committee for all the work you've done and will continue to do on this item. Thank you. Do we have any other items on that at all? Okay. All right. So the next issue, and I'm sorry that I see the gentleman in the audience, is the item regarding. Hold on, I'm going to get there. A written petition submitted by the American Legion, Santa Clara Post 419, Request to be placed on future agenda to discuss American Legion Car Show sponsorship city permits. Thank you. Please come forward, and I apologize that it is so late.
That's okay.
Thank you.
I'm Marty McCormick.
Marty.
I'm the finance officer. You might remember I was here a year ago.
We do remember, yes.
Yeah. So what happened a year ago was you, as a council, not only approved waiving our fees, but you also, one of you moved that that you as a city sponsor our car show. So our car show is coming up on June 9th, which doesn't give us a lot of time. We went through the application process again this year, and there were a couple of there was a new application and a new permit, and we have did you get a sheet, by the way?
Just got it now.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so down at the bottom, you can see what our total costs are. And we've been working with City Manager Santana's staff, namely Christine Jung. She's been really, really helpful. We appreciate that. But again, without going into a lot of detail, this money is, or this car show is to raise money to support veterans activities and help veterans, and that's what the American Legion is all about. So without going through a big sales pitch, we're just asking you to put this on the agenda and vote again to waive our permit charges. And last year, actually, we were under the distinct impression that what was done was set up for the future as well. And we used the word shows throughout our petition and in our applications and so forth. So we were kind of surprised that we had to come back again this year, and we're hoping that something can be done, if it's at least consider it for the future. You could revoke it any time, but so we don't have to come every year and take up your valuable time. So.
Okay, can I ask our city manager, city attorney, can we handle this tonight so they don't have to come back? I know, I'm trying.
I was here last year. I had just started when this process started, and I feel your pain, sir, because this is a very clunky process for asking for what you're asking. And we have indeed been working on the sponsorship policy now for about a year, and it's been through the governance committee, and we've been trying to work this through, and we're just about to bring it back. And so we're hopeful that maybe this will be the last year you go through this process, and that there'll be a different, much more streamlined process for the smaller type sponsorships that the council is interested in being able to give to the community groups.
So because it's a written petition and the car show is coming up soon.
You can't act on it tonight. But
Okay, can we act on it next week?
we can bring an action next week.
Okay,
yes.
and maybe we'll move you up on the agenda.
Yeah, so next week is
you're
your
not-
next council meeting?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday night, yeah. So it would be on the agenda, as an agenda item?
It would be
then?
an agenda item for action, and
Okay.
maybe a council member would move you up on the agenda since you were here so late this evening.
Well, we really appreciate that.
So is there a motion to continue, to add this to the agenda for next week? Councilmember Mahan.
Yeah, I was going to make that motion. And also, when it comes back to us on the 15th, can we get a copy of the action that we took last year on the same issue?
We kind of referenced it.
It's in the letter.
In the
Yeah,
top
but
of this letter.
Just the minutes from our meeting
Yeah.
of that time. Okay, thank you. I'll make that motion.
We'll include it in the.
Yeah, that would be helpful, so we can remember what we did last year in terms of sponsorship.
Okay, and
And again,
we didn't
we'll
mind
pull you
coming
up.
back tonight. We do understand the process is,
Clunky. He
maybe
said
a little.
clunky.
I was going to say
Yeah.
cumbersome. But we do.
Clunky for
we
a
do
car
appreciate.
show.
We do appreciate your.
No, thank you for your patience as well.
Okay.
So that was a motion, Councilmember Mahan?
Second.
Motion second. If you could please register your vote. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Oh, no.
Thank you. Okay, next we have fiscal year 2018-2019 annual action plan for the use of federal housing and urban development funds. City manager, I don't know who's taking this one. Okay, anybody? Oh.
There he is. Ta-da!
Just ran a 10K and came back.
Poor Jonathan.
He thought that item
No
would be a little
break.
longer than it
Yeah.
was. Glad you're still here.
I waited all that time for my break.
I know.
A remote for the slideshow? Good evening, Jonathan Veach, Housing Manager. Tonight I'm pleased to submit the annual action plan for use of our HUD funds for the fiscal year 2018-2019. As you may know, Santa Clara is an entitlement city that receives annual grant funding from HUD. The purpose of the funding is to benefit low-income households by providing affordable housing and community development services to Santa Clara residents. The city holds 2 public hearings annually. It's according to our citizen participation plan and also as part of our annual allocation of funds. Just over a month ago on March 20th, we presented our draft annual action plan and heard feedback from both council and the public. Tonight's presentation will focus on changes to the action plan made since the last meeting, and ultimately staff's recommendation is to approve the annual action plan and allow staff to submit the plan to HUD by the required deadline. Just for reference, I want to quickly review our HUD calendar, our HUD schedule for the current calendar year. So we did community outreach with the CAC committee on February 26th. We presented our draft annual action plan on March 20th. Tonight we're requesting approval of the annual action plan, and we'll be back on September 25th to discuss our 2017 performance and accomplishments with the CAPER report. So on the following slide, you'll notice the big change to the action plan is that we actually received our final funding allocations from HUD, which is a few months earlier than last year's allocations. So these are final numbers, and to everyone's surprise, the allocations were actually more than expected. We received more than a 7% year-over-year increase in CDBG funding and nearly a 50% year-over-year increase in home funding. 20% of the CDBG increase can go towards administrative costs, and 15% of the CDBG increase can go towards public service grants. The remaining balance will go towards our neighborhood rehab program. For home, 10% of the increase can go towards administrative costs, and the balance would go towards our tenant-based rental assistance program. So at the March 20th council meeting, City Council voted to consider, as part of the annual budget process, additional city support for our public service agencies through an allocation of $45,000 from the city's general fund. Based on HUD's funding awards and allocations, since we got the increase, the city is able to allocate an additional $15,000 of CDBG funds towards its public service grants and reduce the request from the city's general fund from $45,000 to $30,000. The updated public service awards are shown on the following slide. The only change is really that senior adult legal assistance, SALA, has been moved to be funded with CDBG funds, and now there are 2 agencies that are proposed to be funded with general funds, which total $30,000. So in conclusion, staff's recommendation is to approve alternatives 1 and 2, which are 1, to approve the annual action plan for the use of HUD funds, and 2, to authorize the city manager to execute the documents for submission to HUD. With that, I'm available for questions.
Sorry, I have a member of the public. Is there any member of the council? Does any member of the council have questions? Okay, seeing none.
Good job.
Thank you very much. Jordan Dancer? Is there anyone who would like to speak on this? Please come forward. Not even 11 o'clock yet.
What are you wanting?
Good evening.
Welcome. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Georgia Basile, Directing Attorney, Senior Adults Legal Assistance. Jordan did want me to tell you that she thanks the staff for their recommendation, but she did have to leave. And I'm just here to thank the staff for their amended recommendation that we be moved from the general fund to CDBG. We've been getting communications from the Senior Center asking us about our schedule there after July 1. In fact, they told us that they're fully booked through June right now, and I haven't been able to tell them that we're able to provide services unless we know what our funding amount is. And so this has really helped stabilize our services for the next year. So we do hope that you'll approve the action plan as presented. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we appreciate your services,
Thank you.
especially at the Senior Center. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right. And this is a public hearing? Is it city attorney? No, okay. So any council discussion or motion from the council?
I'd like to make the motion to recommendation approve the 2018-19 annual action plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
I just wanted to
Go
make
ahead,
a comment.
Councilmember O'Neill.
I know that there's a backlog to get the legal services, so at some point, if there's ever any, I mean, I know these are all very worthy organizations that we've worked with for a long time, but I know that some of our seniors are going to other cities to try to receive legal services. So at some point, if there's ever any little extra amount of money, maybe we could, because then we could have more appointments at the senior center for those who really need that legal assistance.
Ditto that comment. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you all for staying back there. Next item we have on the agenda is action on the terms for assignment and venue agreements between Santa Clara Stadium Authority and 49ers Stadium Management Company for the College Football Playoff National Championship. And this is a Stadium Authority item.
So if we can have the city clerk convene the Stadium Authority Board meeting?
So, well, we're confirming that the Stadium Authority Board meeting is now open.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this action follows the April 24th. I'm trying to move this up. Can I get the other remote? This action follows the April 24th study session where after hearing a presentation from the 49ers Management Company as well as city staff, thank you, as well as board staff, excuse me, the board requested, did I go up too much now? Sorry. The board requested let me start over. I am so lost with the remote. The board requested that we return with formal action on the terms that we proposed at the study session. This follows the college football's award of the 2019 National Championship to Levi Stadium that dates back to 2015. It also follows Manco advising the Stadium Authority that the event will have financial losses. We have been able to get some additional information, which is in your packet, that the board requested, such as information about the board for the Bay Area Host Committee, as well as we included the articles of incorporation in response to that inquiry. Can I get the next slide? Do it this way. So the terms have been consistent all along, and I can just summarize, and these are the same slides that you saw before. Essentially, they are no losses either to the Stadium Authority or to the general fund pre, during, and after the event, and that all costs be covered up to double time for our public safety cost, as well as articulated there under the sub-bullets, all public services for non-day events, expenses not covered by permits, any costs associated with team stay at hotels that don't fit as game definition. And basically, in short, there's no public service support expenditures to absorb and no financial losses. I'm going to try this one more time. We also are, as a term, have included shared net income for the Stadium Authority or city, and that we wanted complete accounting of all revenue and expenses provided to the Stadium Authority Board with an independent third-party audit at no cost to the authority, with the audit contract either managed by myself as the executive director, or if there is hired by that time authority auditor, then the auditor would receive the responsibility of oversight of the audit. We also have here that we know that the Bay Area Host Committee can't operate with a deficit, and we want a full understanding of how the backstop is required as part of the agreement and audit. The venue agreement is a standard and consistent agreement as we presented last time. We did include an audit clause similar to the assignment agreement clause so that we better understand any event activity that occurs under this agreement. So prepayment, another follow-up item that the board requested was how is it that we could further isolate the financial expenditures from the board or from the city, either by way of fronting funds or expending funds, and as you saw tonight with some delayed reimbursement. So here, what was mentioned was an escrow agreement, and we just wanted to present a graph or a diagram or a picture of how that would work. And you can see there's multiple parties. The city is in contract as the law enforcement authority with jurisdiction in Santa Clara with the sheriff's office as well as CHP. We have the Bay Area Host Committee that is backstopped by the 49ers, and then separately we have the Stadium Authority, and the idea would be there would be an escrow account. We have some concerns with this approach, and the first and foremost is, of course, it's fund management of non-public funds. If we were to enter into an escrow agreement structure, there would have to be multiple signatures required for all transactions, so there could be some delays. Of course, it would be subject to full audit by all parties. There may be management fees with supporting a structure of this sort, and we just think it may be overburdensome to try to address the concern that was surfaced. What we have is an alternative approach that we think accomplishes the same and maybe a structure that we can go forward with beyond this event. And so let me just walk you through. In this case, there would be a 4-party agreement. And the agreement would be between the city so that our police department maintains the law enforcement jurisdiction, the Stadium Authority, the Bay Area Host Committee, the Sheriff's Office, and or the CHP. And what our goal here is to have these 4 parties enter into a contract so that the law enforcement oversight continues to be through the Santa Clara Police Department, but direct billing, direct reimbursements happens through the Bay Area Host Committee. And if we took this on in the long term, if we find that this is a successful approach, then we would switch out the Bay Area Host Committee with the 49ers Management Company. So that, for instance, the issues, Manco, the issues that you saw this evening with respect to lag and billing and fronting costs are cured through a structure of this sort. So we recommend to the board that you formally approve the terms that we introduced on April 24th and that you authorize me to continue to pursue and enter into a 4-party agreement to address the public safety costs that we discussed on April 24th, as well as that are still front and center. We do have some new information since we had the April 24th session. Since then, we had the kickoff on May 3rd. And we are entering into next steps where we'll start to report out regularly in the August-September timeframe. But front and center is what's developing to be a pretty tight schedule but there's plenty of time to begin to plan. And I think the terms that are included in the assignment agreement will cover our interest. We learned of the college football bowl game on December 31st, which is a holiday, and that may prove to have some staffing challenges. I just want to acknowledge, based on the schedule that has been provided, that 6 football games will be covered or provided over a span of 6 weeks, as well as there are several games that conflict with our holiday closure or with holidays. So let me go to this next slide. So if you look at this slide, you will see that This is the event schedule as presented on May 3rd. And we can immediately look at our staffing challenges, probably beginning more closely around December 23rd, December 31st. There may be a game on January 5th and 6th if the 49ers make the playoffs. And then that would be followed by January 7th. So we will have some logistics and staging issues that we would need to pre-plan for, as well as if there are other potential playoff games that are put there as a note, which would be January 12th and 13th or the 19th and 20th. So I just wanted, for full disclosure, since we had this information, I think our terms are sound, and we will certainly have more to plan than just the January 7th event. That's the presentation, and the recommendation is in your report, as well as is on a future slide that I can go back to.
Stadium Executive Director, I have to remember which meeting we're in. Last time we had a lot of questions for Manco on the host committee and that. Is there representatives from Manco here today?
They are not here.
And there's a reason why they're not here? What is the reason?
I believe there was a calendar conflict. We did suggest to them that
For
there
11
was.
o'clock at night on a Tuesday?
We did suggest to them, we had our monthly meeting, and they did inform us that they would not be available.
Okay. Councilmember, or Stadium Authority Member Davis.
Thank you, Deanna. I kind of like your alternative, because I guess you had to look into how we could do this money approach and kind of separate things out, so I'm very happy about that. And yesterday I did learn about this potential 5th and 6th date for them, and the possibility of them winning could be, I mean, you know, that could be really tight for us. I mean, they have a new quarterback and some cool people, so this is an extreme possibility. So I'm kind of concerned about that. I mean, what is like plan B for this? I mean, this is a tight schedule for staff alone. So do we have any options, or no?
Well, I had the same question, and I asked Mr. Guido about the whole issue of the playoffs and the contingency, and they think that they have agreement that if they should be so lucky as to be the home team in the first playoff game, that they would be able to negotiate to have that on a Saturday. So at least it'd be one day off from the
7th.
From the 7th, and they believe they can turn it around and do this. So that's all the information I can provide for you. So but both games are now booked. I mean, the 7th is booked, and they have the right to play on the 5th or 6th. So there's not really much we can do about it.
I think what's important is that the kickoff meeting has occurred. We have a fuller set of information. Staff is going to be meeting 1 to 2 times a week in order to understand the full exposure of logistics and event planning. They've done it before. We're going to start regularly reporting out to you on the planning for this event, given particularly the tight schedule. And we will be proactive in areas that we know help influence our staff to sign up.
It just seems like it's a lot of work for staff. I mean, 3 Sunday games in a row, all afternoon games. And then all of a sudden, that wild card they could get it. I mean, it's a strong possibility. So I'm just looking at staff time. I don't know if this is open to the public, but I'd like to make the recommendation, make the motion when we're ready to do that.
Second.
Are we ready to do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so.
I have a second already.
Oh, I
so,
do, excellent.
yeah.
Okay, so the staff recommendation, I would like to approve this.
Does that include that means of funding that you came across, not the escrow
Yes.
account, but the other?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
They're
because I
alternative.
like that. Okay.
It's the second part of the bullet, just to allow for me to enter into,
Okay.
The contracted
explore a
public
4-party
services.
agreement and execute if we're
Very good.
successful.
Authority Member Mahan?
So as I understand it, the potential on the 5th and 6th is if they make the wild card playoff. So we're really confident that they won't, so they can just skip that, and then there won't be a game that week, and then they'll have it the following week.
Thank you. Any other member of the authority wanting to speak? If not, I'm going to go to the public. The first speaker is Kurt Vartan. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Oh, I'm sorry, Stadium
Stadium
Authority.
Authority Board.
Folks, yeah. So I didn't attend the study session, and I came late to it, and so I didn't feel it was appropriate to comment at that time. But I heard some things that I was kind of frustrated about, and after relooking at the session, I just wanted to at least share those now. There was a big deal made at the end of the meeting, which I did attend, the part that I did attend, that talked about the use of the term escrow and using the example of maybe the trustworthiness probably isn't the right term, but the good neighbor effect of Manco or Stadco or the 49ers, and wanting to be very diligent about separating the monies. And a council member made the comments like, well, it's kind of flippant comments like, well, you're in real estate, you don't really know the term. I thought that was a little, I don't think it was meant harshly, but I heard it that way. And so I don't think we should get wrapped around the axle on an example. I can come up with probably a dozen examples of the meetings that I attended where the 49ers were not playing fair and being kind of acting in good faith. And I think that's where the mayor or the executive director or whatever was getting at. And I think what the city manager did here by creating that joint powers or authority, that box with the arrows coming out of it, is a really creative way to do that. Because you don't have to have the money up front. I don't think sequestering money up front is a good idea either. So being able to direct bill so the city doesn't have any liability and there's no chance to commingle funds or where did it come from, you got the billing yet or whatever, that's all gone. So kudos to figuring that out. And really, really good job being diligent about asking that question.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come forward. Tom.
Sam Hagag here, and I apologize for not having attended that study session, but I watched it, and I gotta say, there's been a lot of patting on the back, for this is the first time that a city has not been liable for losses from this, from any event or this event or whatever. That's table stakes. Like, we shouldn't be patting ourselves on the back for not losing the city money on an event in our stadium. That's just that's bare minimum. We're patting, the Manco, the 49ers have set the bar so low that we are so happy to take something that should in any other scenario be the bare minimum, that we shouldn't lose money. And I actually would strongly ask, I'm gonna say something super, maybe it's not that drastic, but something drastic, and I'm gonna ask the maker of the motion to please rescind your motion. First, the 49ers aren't here tonight. You talk about a trusted partner, like what Kirk was saying. They're not even here tonight. Number two, we've heard from them and from a council member who's not here tonight that apparently some concerts make $800,000 in an event. I looked at this event as lost opportunity cost. If I don't host them, this football game, this college football championship game, and instead I go and get a concert, I'd make more money off a birthday party with 100 people reserving out a single hall in the stadium than I would out of this event. So why would I host this event if I'm not going to make any money? Why wouldn't I get a birthday party? Why wouldn't I get a corporate person to come in here, a corporation to come in for their employees? This is an opportunity cost lost on us. And the other thing is, we're not even factoring in the wear and tear on the stadium. So no, it's not a zero cost to the city. There's wear and tear from the thousands of people that are going to be there, and we're going to be the ones who have to foot the bill to fix our stadium from this event, which is supposedly we're patting ourselves on the back for.
Thank you.
I was about to leave, but this is too tempting. And I want to say that I'm shocked that we have an agreement with a company and that doesn't even come and represent themselves. This is a business. You guys are actually in business. You might not realize that, but that is your job. Your business is to look after our money because it is our money at the end of the day. I don't care what anybody says, and I've had arguments with people here saying, oh, but it's not, Mr. Matthews at one stage said, oh, but it's different. No, it's not different. This is money, and it all comes down to the people that live here, and the people that are representing that stadium should be here talking and discussing this with you. I don't care if it's 11 o'clock at night. Guess what? I'm here. And I'm going to work tomorrow too. And I'm probably going to go home and work still tonight, because that's what I do at night sometimes. So let it be understood that it is disappointing that as a citizen, that people that so-called have an agreement with us are not here talking on their behalf, and you're having to make a decision. I hope your decision is one that does not include their mind, because that is wrong. You need to step back. We have a bad agreement with this company, and you've known that a long time, but it's time to step up and do something about it.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Okay, Authority Member Kolstad, you're first.
Thanks, Mayor. I think we're missing something here. The city staff did an incredible job. If you look at the college national football championship games that have been held in other cities in the recent past, you'll see that the cities did not fare well. And although we're not making a bundle of money like we could with some other event, the city staff crafted an agreement here where we can't get hurt. We're going to get national media attention. It's going to increase the marketability of this stadium going forward. I think the staff did an incredible job. I support Councilmember Davis's motion that we approve the staff recommendation and proceed with this. Were it not for our staff, we could have been exposed to some serious losses. So this is a good, I think, agreement. And the fact that the staff has met with our business partners and negotiated this is a credit to them. And I trust them when they say they've given us a good deal. It looks good to me. So I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Executive Director?
I just want to be very clear on what we're doing. This was an added step. We had the study session. You requested formal approval of the terms. With that, we will continue discussions with Manco, bring back the agreements for public approval on May 29th.
Okay, thank you.
And I just wanted to point out, we don't necessarily have agreement on these points from Manco or the host committee or the 49ers team. This is what we're presenting to you as to what we think the city position should be in that negotiation. We're still negotiating documents at this point, and there will be no formal approval of anything until May 29th. But we very much appreciate having the support of the board in providing that direction and that resolve. It really helps us in being able to obtain that consent on the other side.
Let me be a little bit more clear, though. We do have agreement that there will be no losses to the authority.
Oh, we
and to
agree
the
on
city.
that. Oh, yeah.
And
Totally.
that and the other right, the other areas we are, and there will be shared income if there is any income. Those are areas. The other two are areas that we're still refining and discussing, but we believe the board would be wise to propose them and accept them as terms.
Thank you for that clarification. Authority Member Mahan?
Thank you. I do want to support our city manager and our city attorney going forward. Giving them our full support gives them so much more weight, and when it comes to negotiating the fine points of this agreement and getting the 49ers and the Manco to agree to our terms. And I understand that they have already agreed that the city will have no losses. It's also important to understand that in every other city that's won the bid for this Super Bowl of college games, they do foot the bill, and they do absorb the losses in return for the economic activity that this huge game brings to the city. And over 70,000 people, it's, like I say, it's a Super Bowl of college games. So we'll reap those benefits at no loss, and that is something very new, very unique in these college bowl championship bids. And I give credit to our city manager and our city attorney for getting this far in the negotiations. And these, like I say, with our support, they have all that much more weight as they go forward to negotiate the final contracts, which of course we will see in full, and I'm sure that Manco will be here at that time.
Authority Member O'Neill.
Thank you. So yeah, we all know that I've had some issues about the transparency, and I'm not the only one, about the transparency of some of the financials. And so there's nothing new about that. We're still working that through to see more clarity on these non-NFL events. But at least, and even though when you do the numbers on it, it's not that much, but we will still get the ticket surcharge, right? So we'll get the ticket surcharge, and I mean, Angie has been presenting us numbers that, once again, whether to how auditable they are, but she is getting numbers on what our share in some of these events is going to be. So we still need to work on that. So I mean, so we know we're going to get the surcharge. We'll get some other things. Like I said, I've kind of been a little skeptical on some of the economic activity numbers on these things, but I'm glad that, at least we're not subsidizing, because like I said, when this came to us, what's the financial model on this? Somebody is making a lot of money, because otherwise this game would not be happening. They're not doing this just to have a Boy Scout jamboree, So.
Thank you. And I think probably a little bit of the history, because I'm a little sensitive to the fact that it's been pointed out that the bar is set so low that we're almost desperate to have any little bit of anything, because I think that we've actually come a really long way. And, the history of this particular game is that the 49ers bid on the game without any involvement from the city or the Stadium Authority. And it wasn't brought to our board's attention until about, was it 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, for the first time, when the bid was a couple of years ago. And so naturally, since we didn't agree to anything in terms of footing any of the costs, we didn't agree to anything. So when they brought it to us, just a few short weeks ago, they had already made the bid, they had already made the commitments. They said there was a host committee, although they couldn't name anyone on the host committee. That's why I was hoping to ask them tonight about their host committee, but they're not here. But needless to say, if they're going to operate in that function, then they're going to take on all the costs and responsibilities of this game, because we're not going to commit to anything or any of the costs, like what happened in some of the other events. So I think the fact that we are the first city to host this game and not subsidizing with public funds in the history of this football game. So I'm actually really proud of that. And I think that people will use us as a model going forward, that a city doesn't actually have to use public funds to subsidize this national championship game. So that is a big deal, considering what was the last city subsidized it to the tune of $12 or more million, or $15 million, public funds. We're not going to subsidize anything. And the extra protections that our staff is recommending that we will actually demand is that none of this money goes and runs through our general fund. And that's where we had a lot of issues with the way we've been running and managing the stadium per the audit recommendations of Harvey Rose. So if we can clear it away from our general fund, isolate it, not have any expenses that aren't reimbursed, and also we have the most important thing, we have auditing rights at the end, where we're choosing the auditor and directing the auditor for any financial return to make sure that the city or the Stadium Authority gets its fair share of income that comes in for this game. So I think that we have come a long, long, long way. And I'm actually proud of what we've done, and I don't think it's set low. Our bar is set really high, and I hope this is the model we use for all of the events going forward. We are going to get to the point where there will be complete financial transparency, and the Stadium Authority will get all the financial documents that our contracts say we should be getting, and we're working hard for that. And we're not there yet because we don't have the cooperation yet, but we will get it, because that's the way the contracts are supposed to run. So I think we're on the right track. I want to thank the staff for working really hard on this particular, but we are paving new ground in that respect. So I will be supporting the motion on the floor to give direction for the negotiations. Councilmember Mahan, or Authority Member, you have additional comments?
Yes, just a point of clarification. It may be true that the council didn't know anything about this until a month or two ago, whatever it was, but our then city manager certainly did. And I also want to point out that we did get a full list of the host committee. It includes 9 local community members, including the executive director of our own convention center, CVB. So I think we do have that information here now. Manco doesn't need to be here to tell us what it is. We have it in front of us. Just to clarify for the record.
That's your opinion, but thank you. Okay, is there a, we can vote now on the motion? Okay. Please register your vote, and that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff, for that report as well. Okay, our next item we have, I think we're getting close, is, let's see, adopt the fiscal year 2018-19 municipal fee schedule to set new fees, rates, and charges, amend existing fees, delete certain fees, and retain unchanged fees for various city departments effective July 1st, 2018 and July 8th, 2018 for development impact fees. I think we're separating those, right?
Yes,
okay.
we are.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good
I'm
evening,
so
Madam
sorry
Mayor.
to interrupt, but I just want
certainly.
to clarify for the record that the council had continued this public hearing until, from their April 24th meeting till tonight, so we'll consider this the actual public hearing.
So
part of it, too.
I'm opening the public hearing. Thank you for that, City Clerk.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. My name is Michelle Iglesian. I'm the city's Municipal Services Division Manager for the Finance Department, and I'm very pleased to present to you the 2018-19 citywide municipal fee schedule. There's been a lot of hard work that's gone into this schedule this past year, and I am also wanting to mention that we did attempt to bring this forward on April 24th and had to go ahead and continue that since we were trying to include the park in lieu of fees with that particular item for the council to hear. Unfortunately, we had some public comment, and some of the development community reached out to us and indicated that they had some concerns. So what we did at that time was we decided to go ahead and pull that item from the agenda, and then currently staff is reviewing the park in lieu of fees for the residential development, and fee modifications will be made as necessary after our review and analysis is completed. Okay, slide number 2, we're at the bottom of slide number 2. So after staff conducts additional outreach to allow for public comment for the park in lieu of fees, we will go ahead and bring that back at a later date. So currently, for the interim, what's going to happen is the prior year, 2017-18 park in lieu of fees will remain in place until such time a new schedule is approved. So now we can move forward into the presentation of the citywide municipal fee schedule for the upcoming fiscal year. And I just wanted to mention that the proposed municipal fee schedule is actually a compilation of various fees for city services provided to the public. And in the book that you have before you this evening, the fee schedule has over 948 fees actually contained in its cover here. And 70% of those fees are actually eligible for a cost of services study. The remaining 30% of the fees that are contained within the schedule are actually set by voter approval and/or state or federal law. So you may be thinking 948 fees is an awful lot of fees, and yes it is, because I look at each and every one of them. Trust me, I know there's a lot of work that goes into them. However, they're not all the fees that the city publishes. We do have some separately published fee schedules that I wanted to make mention of, and those are documents such as our electric utility rate schedule, our water and sewer rate schedules, in addition to the Santa Clara Parks and Recreation charges. So if you're looking to take a fencing class or a knitting class, you're not going to reference this fee schedule in front of you. You're going to go to the Recreation's activity guide for the time and schedule and cost for those type of classes that the city offers. One of the most common questions that I often have asked is what allows the city to set its rates and its charges as it does? Well, it's simply put, there's two real governing documents that guide our processes. One is the regulations that come out of Proposition 218. The second one would be the California Government Code, Section 66014. These actually allow local agencies such as the City of Santa Clara to set fees at rates that obtain fair and reasonable recovery of costs without exceeding the full cost recovery. And that is really a key, not exceeding the full cost recovery. And we take that very seriously here in Santa Clara. And we're one of the very few cities that actually is on a regimented cycle of studying our fees. So we are currently on a 3-year cycle. What we do every 3 years is we go ahead and perform with a consultant, a user fee study, and we also update the city's cost allocation plan. We go through a formal RFP process, we select a qualified vendor, and we work with each of the city departments as well as the consultant to come up with defendable means for us to recover our costs for services. So we're currently in the 3rd year of our cycle. I just wanted to highlight in the 2016-17 year, we embarked on phase 1. And then the following fiscal year, last year, we embarked on phase 2. You may be wondering why there's 2 phases. Well, simply put, we have over 10 departments that house fees in the schedule, and looking at 948 of them all in 1 year is very monumental. So we go ahead and we break the city up into 2 segments. So we try to look at 5 departments 1 year, and then the following year in phase 2, look at the remaining 5 departments. So with that being said, in 2016, we contracted with NBS Government Finance Group to perform the user fee studies, which resulted, I'm very proud to say, a $7.8 million subsidy reduction to the city's general fund. And that's very important because then we're able to allocate those funds to more immediate needs of the city, paving the roads, repairing streetlights or public facilities. So that was a real win for us to be able to free up that money. Moving on. I wanted to just highlight when we did review the departments in 2016-17, we actually looked at 4 of them. That was a busy year. You might remember we had that Super Bowl going on, so we had to pick and choose which departments we looked at. We worked with Public Works. We also studied the fire department, the electric utility, and the Parks and Recreation department. So when we looked at their fees, we looked at everything they do involved with them to come up with an appropriate costing mechanism. And as of this year, and going back and looking at where we stand today, the Public Works Department is currently recovering 98% of full cost. That's pretty great. So kudos to Public Works for moving forward in that respect. The Fire Department is currently recovering about 90% of their fees, meaning that 90% of the fees are at full cost. We cannot exceed that. The remaining 10%, they may be sensitive fees that we just don't want to get to full cost for one reason or another. The electric utility is at 97% of full cost recovery, and our Parks and Recreation Department has 37% of their fees at full cost recovery. And again, some of these programs and departments may never reach full cost for all of their fees. It's just not socially the thing to do. Moving on to the following fiscal year, which was last year, 2017-18, we looked at the Community Development Department, specifically the Planning Division. And in finance, we looked at all the fees within finance, and we looked at the library, we looked at the police department, and we also studied the water and sewer utilities. I did want to mention when we studied the community development department, we did not include the building division in that study. That is actually slated for the fall of this year. We're going to hire a specialized consultant to look at our building fees. Going back and looking at where we stand today with the recovery, in community development, 37% of their fees are at full cost. Finance has 97% of their fees at full cost. The library is recovering costs, but none of their fees are actually at full cost. They're still collecting money, but we want to keep those fees attainable for our residents and our public to use those facilities. In the police department, we've recovered about 89% of the fees at full cost, and in our water and sewer utility, about 73% of their fees are at full cost recovery. A couple of highlights that I wanted to bring to your attention this year is that in the 2018-19 directive to all the fee departments, we asked them to update their fees by 6.27%, which actually represents the increase in the 2018-19 salary and benefits costs. We also created a new citywide section which lists common city fees such as copy charges, fax charges, return check charges, just make it more easily digestible for the community when they're looking at the schedule. Our electric utility department also updated the load development fee to a 2-tiered fee structure. So this was done in an effort to assist with the system-wide capacity expansion fee. As our city continues to grow, we also have to remember that we need to expand along with that growth. So as Director Rockerman mentioned a few weeks back, he had a whole session on what the expansion fee would do for our city. So that is involved in this fee study here. We also had an update to the Parks and Recreation schedule. They actually redesigned the cemetery section to include an easy-to-read table outlining the Mission City Memorial Park interment rights and burial materials. So again, when you're faced with a bunch of fees at, you're in maybe not in the best condition if you're going to the cemetery, you're dealing with some pretty intense stuff. So we wanted to make it easily digestible and readable for everyone. I also wanted to mention that we are bringing forward 18 new fees this year to add to the fee schedule. And we've determined through the course of the last 2 years, after working with the departments and the consultants, that we need these fees to recover the costs, and they're resulting from significant increases in the service level for services the city actually already provides, but we've never charged for. An example is in the Community Development Department, the Housing and Community Service fees specifically. We've been performing the service, but we've never charged the fee. We're also proposing in the Public Works Department to add an encroachment permit field marking for traffic signals. Our water and sewer utility and our electric utility already have field marking fees in their schedule, so we want to make it uniform in nature across the board. And then in our water and sewer utility department, the wastewater treatment plant capacity fee for the accessory dwelling units needs to be updated. As you all know, in the fall of last year, with the new ordinance for the ADUs, there have been some changes to the structures of how we do business here in the city, and it was necessary to add this component into the fee schedule this year. I also wanted to highlight that we deleted 3 fees. In addition to looking at new fees, we're also looking for obsolete fees. Due to technology advancements, we have removed the council meeting audio tape duplication fee. And then we took another look at the IRS mileage reimbursement fees for both Superior Court and Federal District Court, and they're more of an internal process, so we removed them from the public's schedule. Another area that's new for us this year is the recommendation of a 2% technology fee. We're proposing this be added as a surcharge to all appropriate fees, and the revenue that is actually going to be generated from this technology fee will be earmarked to replace our end-of-life citywide business applications and systems. As you know from your goal-setting retreat back in January, we do have a lot of aging systems, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot of specific funding to fund those needs. So this technology fee would be directly routed to business systems that are in need of updates. And the proposed municipal fee schedule before you results in a reduction for this coming year of $1.5 million to the general fund. And $500,000 of that is actually a direct result of implementing this 2% technology fee. And since we did have to move the public hearing by a couple of weeks, our regular fees will still become effective July 1, 2018, but our development impact fees are actually going to be effective July 8, 2018. That's because there is a 60-day waiting period that we have to comply with. So with that being said, adopting the proposed fee schedule is an important component of the city's financial strategy, and this schedule adheres to the City Council's January 2018 adopted budget principles, which establishes fees based on full cost recovery with those limited exceptions. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you for that excellent presentation, especially the slide on the cost recovery. I think that's important for us to see, and we understand why certain departments may have larger cost recovery than others. So I'm going to go down with the council. We'll start with Councilmember Mahan.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. So I see that most fees are around the 6% increase range, which seems fair. But my question, just to clarify, that that percentage increase that's reported on the fee schedule includes the 2%. Is that correct? The 2% technology fee? So if something is, for instance, it shows a 6% increase in fees on our schedule where we're looking, that increase includes the 2%?
The reduction to the general fund subsidy, the 1.5 million, half a million of that would be attributed to the technology fee. So if you just see.
That's not what I'm asking. So just take a random page, like page 415. It shows a historical landmarks fee increase from 750 to 797, percentage change is 6.27%. So does that percentage include the 2%?
No, it does
So
not.
really everything is 8%. Add 2% to each of those percentages. Okay.
Correct. Those that would qualify for a technology fee. There are some fees in the schedule that are considered a tax, so we would never put a technology fee on a tax.
But by and large, most of them are
Yes.
just the fees?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So we're really looking at increasing all these fees by whatever the report is, 6.3 plus 2, so it's 8.3. I had just a clarification because I didn't know what it meant on pages, well, it's mentioned on page 4.6 and 4.17 for significant property alteration, and this is new. What does, and you have two categories, major and minor, and then you break it down for single-family applicants and all others. So the single family is quite a bit less, and I understand the reason for that. But what does significant property alteration mean? And then underneath that, what is the difference between major and minor?
I'm going to ask Andrew to come up to the podium and speak to the details on that specific fee.
So I'm Andrew Crabtree, Director of Community Development. If I understand the question, you're really asking what is the difference between a significant property alteration, major and minor, is that?
No,
correct?
we'll start with what does significant property alteration mean?
Okay. This relates to when something has been approved, but it would be a change, or it's a change from the allowed standards under the development code. So it's like a variance or a minor modification where there's a need for either a staff level determination per the standards that are in the code that something conforms, or in the case of a major modification, goes to a planning commission for a determination that's acceptable to.
Okay, so this would be in addition, so somebody goes to the counter, they bring in their plans, they're doing a remodel, they pay the building fee, the planning fee, and then this would be an additional fee if they need either a staff modification to get their
Correct.
plans approved, or a higher level would be major, and that would go to like a planning commission or architectural review or something.
That's correct.
Okay, I understand. And then I had another question. This wouldn't be for you, Mr. Crabtree, but thank you for that clarification. There was something on page 9-17, for fundraising events, and I think this was a new one too. It's easier to go here.
For the Parks and Recreation Department. So I think James is here in the audience.
It was a 15% of gross receipts for use of a public facility. It was on 920, sorry, not 917. So fundraising events at city facilities, 15% of gross receipts. My question is, does that apply to like nonprofit fundraisers?
I do not believe it does. James, you might be able to better answer that.
Says fundraising events for private parties are charged 15% of all gross receipts.
Nonprofit is a private entity.
So like when
You're raising
So like when Sister Cities has their tea at the senior center, they have to give them 15% of the monies they raise? I don't think we've ever done that in the past.
It's page 917 you're looking at.
920, sorry. Yeah, that wasn't a change, but I just wondered because having participated in a lot of nonprofit fundraisers at the Triton, at the senior center, never known that to be imposed.
Private party. Probably not on the nonprofits.
Pardon me?
Probably not on the nonprofits. I'd have to go back and look on that.
Yeah, maybe
I
we
don't think
could
we do,
collect-
because
I
we
don't
don't
think we
do any receipts after those events. We don't count
Yeah.
the receipts.
Maybe that needs to be clarified
Clarified
somehow
in
or
a
looked
comment,
into.
further
Sure. Okay. And then I did notice for soccer fields and youth soccer park and all, it is clarified in the schedule that it's exempt for our residential soccer teams, football teams, or whatever the case is. So I guess just a comment as a follow-up, since the 2% technology fee, since this is a public schedule, how will it be communicated when somebody looks at this schedule, when they say, okay, well, I'm going to be charged, I don't know, $597 for my application? How will they know that they're actually not going to pay $597? They're going to pay $597 plus 2%.
So we have in the citywide section, we have created a technology fee category on page
Right.
1-2.
Mhm.
And then we also have we've created in the Community Development Department a specific section for those that are applying for permits that also indicates that same information. So we have to program the systems. For example, Tidemark for the Planning Department, we're going to have to do a special programming so when they get their itemized receipt, they'll see that based on the value of the
But
permit.
how do we communicate that before they even come in, so they know what to expect?
So this public document would be one mechanism, and then we could also do an outreach to the community.
I guess what I'm just trying to say is, isn't it more fair to have a column to say, okay, the basic fee is $597, for example, plus a 2% technology fee, you'll pay whatever that comes out to be.
Certainly, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's a good recommendation. Again, this is something new. We've never had a fee like this before in Santa Clara, so we are going to have to figure out how to keep that allocation separate for each of, general fund money stays in general fund, enterprise money stays in enterprise fund. So we're going to have a good way to keep that balanced.
I'm
and
sure
I
Angie's
want
going
to
to be
add
able to
for the
figure that
record
out. Thank you.
that while this is a new fee for the city of Santa Clara, this is not a new fee for public agencies. This is.
Oh, no, I'm not
So
disputing the fee.
We can look
need
at
it.
what their outreach is, we can
Yeah.
look at how they communicate and just borrow from other agencies that are already well-practiced in getting this information out.
Actually, we talked with Palo Alto too. Talked with them about how they model their fees, and we've reached out to Sunnyvale as well.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, this is just a time for questions, but
Certainly.
I'll take the opportunity to make a comment. I think it's a great fee, and I think we need it. We certainly want to keep up our technology because we are beginning to move in that direction to a greater extent, and we're going to need these fees, and I'm sure it's certainly easy to segregate that and make sure it gets spent in the right way. I'm just want to make things very clear to the public that when they open a fee schedule or they get a pamphlet and they see what they're going to be charged, that they know that the dollar amount of what this fee is going to cost them, that's all.
Okay.
And I don't think we're going to have any objections to people paying it. We just need to let them know.
Clarify it, correct.
Thank you. I don't see any other lights from the council, so I have a member of the public, Suds Jane, if you'd like to come forward, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I noticed that the Parks in lieu fee was challenged by the developers, and my concern is that they're just going to delay it and not have to pay. But I'd like to put a stake in the ground and say they'll pay it on this date, and when we figure out what the price is, that's what they'll pay. The second is that the one fee that I see missing in here is a public arts fee. Sad to say, there isn't much in Santa Clara that I would want to go to take a picture of. Whereas if I go to other cities, even Redwood City, their bicycle racks look like bicycles, and they have public art fees. So the one fee that I see missing is a public art fee. Los Altos has a 1% public art fee. There's 1% proposed in Berkeley. Oakland has 1%. Other cities that have public art fees are Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, Mountain View, and even Mount Milpitas. So I'd like to see some consideration of that. The other thing that I had pointed out some months ago was that our traffic impact fees are too low. I didn't see any mention of traffic impact fees in this fee schedule. Finally, for some time I've been complaining about that the use of public meeting spaces is expensive, and a few years ago we got them to reduce, we got the city manager to reduce the fees to $25 per meeting for some of our parks and rec buildings, but it hasn't been consistent. For example, the library rooms don't have any provision for nonprofits. So it's $50 setup and $50 per hour to use the big rooms, no break for nonprofits. And then an interesting thing about the senior center is if you want to rent a room in the senior center in the evening, and there's already one event there, you can't have two events there in the evening. And CRC rooms also are $44 per hour, no breaks for nonprofits. Finally, I'd like to see the definition of nonprofits changed a little bit. Right now, more than half the members of that organization have to be Santa Clara residents. And I would say maybe 3 of the people attending have to be Santa Clara residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Okay, seeing none. I have a question, and it maybe to the city manager or city attorney. If we wanted to add an arts fee onto our fee schedule, what would be the process to do that?
You should direct us to come back with a proposal, and we may want to have a study session to look at options for the council to consider and receive your input and then finalize a policy.
I would like if a council member could make a motion that we refer that back to staff to look at, because it's something that I know we've talked about for a long time, and we talked about it with our Cultural Advisory Commission and others, that we would start looking at that because art is very important in the city. So
I just wanted to mention that we are going to be going through another study in 1819. We'll be going out for an RFP. We could have them look at that too at the same time so that we make sure that we have the right fee. You know, and with the technology fee, we kind of looked around in the area and we kind of gotten the median. We think the 2%, we actually could go higher. Some cities are at 5%, but we didn't want it because we weren't testing. I did not have a consultant looking at it. We wanted to be conservative. So the same thing with the art fee. We might could have a consultant look at it and get a better idea of what the fee could be.
I would like to see that because I just want to stop talking about it and actually do something. Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes, so I had a conversation with the city manager a few weeks ago, and because I kind of think that art fee usually kind of follows into all of our like development impact fees. So maybe did I misunderstand? I thought that was kind of like a separate discussion, like all the fees that we charge like for transportation and other types of impacts that are directly related to development. And isn't that usually as part of that
Well, I
fee
thought we'd
packet?
study that. I don't know under what form it
Right,
actually takes place.
so because I know that Councilmember Davis and I have made comments about that. You know, those I don't think some of those fees have been changed for 25 or 30 years. And so I've long been supportive of the idea of looking at having an art fee, but usually isn't that as part of when a new development is going, and you can either do it something annual or you put it on as part of a fee that they would pay or developer would pay.
Well, my recollection from San Jose was well, my understanding is nowhere is it a cost recovery fee, which is basically what we're talking about here. So it's not it is much more related to development, and I've seen it. I certainly saw it in San Jose with respect to it came out either as you're putting public art in the building or outside the building, or you pay a fee so because you're not doing that. That's kind of my general recollection of how it worked over there. And then, but then you got into a lot of discussion at the design stage of, is that really the kind of public art we want? So I guess what if we got the direction to look at bringing back public art, we would bring you the gamut of how the other
options,
jurisdictions
right?
do it. It would, I agree, it doesn't really fall into the category of what we're talking about here in terms of municipal fee schedule.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have to do that by consensus or?
Councilmember Mahan?
Yeah, but it could. I mean, to me, it seems like this 2% technology fee puts the money in our hands for us to do what we want and what we need. A 1% arts fee in the same schedule would do the same thing, give us a source of funding that's in our hands, and maybe a combination of things. Maybe the developers can do their own thing too, but I wouldn't preclude adding it like the technology fee here, and like I say, having a source of revenue directly to our city to do our art programs and partner and reach out to artists and do a lot of creative things. But I certainly support studying that issue and bringing it back in the next fiscal year. So if the mayor would entertain that motion that we adopt the fee schedule with.
Can we close the public hearing
Oh,
first? Is that the first motion?
Sure.
Okay. So motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Councilmember Mann, motion second?
Oh, second.
Okay. Please register your vote. Thank you. That passes. And then Councilmember Mahan.
So I would move to adopt the fee schedule, including the 2% new technology fee, and refer back to the city manager to bring back to us options for instituting an art fee.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? Seeing none, we have the vote, please. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you all for the presentations. Very good presentations. Thank you. Okay, our next item is, let's see. We continued the Chamber of Commerce item. So it's action related to the elected police chief's benefit request. I don't know who's taking that. Julia, you're still here.
Good morning.
Midnight, so there we go.
Yes. Hello, Mayor and council members. I'm Julia Hill, Interim HR Director. And tonight we have a presentation on the elected police chief benefits request. And let me make sure, I haven't done this yet, so let me see where I'm going with this. Come on, sorry. Oh, I did it. So a little bit of a background for you. Back on your March 20th, 2018 meeting, Council approved the police chief's written request for retroactive wage increases. The chief's request did not specify a request for an adjustment in benefits, but the pay increases conform to the 2016-2018 Unit 9A MOU. On March 29th, 2018, the police chief requested benefits equivalent to the Unit 9A MOU, and those are enhanced benefits for your consideration. They are an increase in city-paid health coverage. In 2017, they went up $100 a month, and in 2018, they went up $133.49 a month. City-paid employee-only dental and vision coverage, and 40 additional hours of management leave per year. Oops. So the benefits were provided in error in parts of 2017 and 18. The police chief position has traditionally been tied to the Unit 9A in the HR payroll system, which has caused this problem. When Unit 9A employees received their enhanced benefits in April 2017, these were paid to the police chief without proper authority as well. Staff failed to stop those benefits through July 2017, resulting in the provision of those enhanced benefits each pay period for the period of April 2017 through July. Staff did stop those benefits from August through October of 2017. For certain pay periods, staff did not manually override the system setup, which tied him to Unit 9A. So there was also benefits provided to him for November, December 2017 and January through March of 2018. He also received 40 additional hours of management leave in 2017. He did not receive the same in 2018. So this chart will hopefully help a little bit. Various health benefits awarded to the police chief. The white portions are just the regular benefits that he's receiving, not the enhanced. The shaded areas are the erroneously applied enhanced benefits for both years, 2017 and 2018. The total overpayment of benefits is $1,055.51. Possible council actions include 4 alternatives. Sorry, this typeface is a little small. Alternative number 1 is approve the enhanced benefits for the police chief equivalent to the Unit 9A MOU effective today. That fiscal impact is $1,153.11 for medical, dental, and vision. Number 2 would be to approve the retroactive enhanced benefits for the police chief equivalent to the Unit 9A MOU for the period December 18th, 2016 through yesterday. This is basically a look back. And the fiscal impact is $921.23 for medical, dental, and vision. Option 3 is to approve retroactive enhanced benefits for the police chief equivalent to the Unit 9A MOU for the period December 18th, 2016 through May 7th, and then moving forward from today. And that fiscal impact is $3,129.85 for medical, dental, and vision. Or number 4, any other action as you propose. So with that, that short presentation is done, but I'm available for questions.
Okay, let's see if there's any questions. Seeing no questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council? Councilmember Mahan?
Thank you. I'm assuming this is coming before us because it's required to have, be done in a public meeting and require council approval. And I think it was, for me, it was an oversight when we approved the salary that we didn't approve the benefits that go along with it, because I just assumed we were approving the package that Unit 9A got. So to that end, I don't know if we want to hear from the chief, but I would recommend, and I'm sorry, I'm not quite understanding the differences among 1, 2, and 3.
They basically just are as to time. So number 1 would be, sorry, my alternatives are, they went away.
So for instance, number 1 would mean that he didn't have health coverage until now?
He has been provided health coverage, yes. So there would be some, if you approved this one, there would be some.
He'd have to pay back those months?
Correct.
So in order to make him whole and be consistent with the salary action that we took, that would be number 3.
Number 3.
Okay, then that would be my motion, that we approve the retroactive benefits according to alternative number 3.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Councilmember Kolstad? Oh, you're off. Okay, I don't see anyone else. Oh, Councilmember O'Neill.
Yeah, so I'm confused. Pardon me, maybe it's getting late or whatever. So, but part of there was discussion in here about like the unpaid leave and I guess there was an increase in administrative leave, so was that also a component of it, Julia?
Yes. So for 2017, he did get the 40 additional hours of management leave. That was the only enhanced benefit. Everything else remained the same for leaves, like vacation, et cetera. For 2018, he was not awarded the 40 hours of additional management leave because we did stop that benefit.
Okay, so that's calendar year 2018?
Yes, calendar year. Yes.
Not fiscal.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So part of what I'm confused, because we were talked about, like, one of the things that we did agree upon, and this is kind of in a weird area, that we were going to, the staff was going to look at refining this process where we were going to have an ordinance or whatever that we were going to have all these issues dealt with going forward with a commission, you know, a salary setting commission that would be separate from the council to get the council out of this. I know how busy the staff has been. You know, so I was kind of surprised that we were already dealing with another issue related, because, you know, like I said, because of the fact of the difficulty of having some elected officials weigh in on the salaries of another elected official. You know, that was what I thought we were going to do, you know, that we agreed to do going forward.
That is still what is planned, that was the council's direction. However, let me just back up. On March 20th, when the council heard the item, there were, it was predominantly a wage increase request. There was a number in there around $522 and another line item where a portion of the benefits were retroactively approved. And as we began to implement the council direction to provide the wage increase that the council approved, we recognized in the payroll system that the retroactive benefits awarded to the chief were higher than the amounts, and so we had to go back and do some review than what was brought forward at the March 20th meeting. And then we also recognized that the chief's written request, which is what we analyzed and processed and brought forward to the council, only spoke to wages. So we had no authority to implement any additional benefits. And when we were here on March 20th, we spoke to inappropriate actions to provide enhanced increases and some retroactive benefits that should have not been provided to the chief, and we got corrective action there. In these recommendations, there is corrective action by, if you look at number 3, there's retroactively acknowledging those benefits that were erroneously awarded, and also his written request now, and I believe it's in your packet, for the benefits equal to Unit 9A.
And for the salary setting commission, that does not go into effect until 2019.
Right.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion and a second. I won't be supporting the motion. I didn't support the salary increase. I'm not going to be supporting the benefits. So if anybody else wants to speak, if not, oh, sorry, public. Apologize.
Getting late.
We've been here since
Getting
4:30.
I know. I saw you guys.
Yeah.
From the comfort of my home.
Good.
I don't envy you. Hossam Hagag here. I wasn't here in the last meeting. As you all know, I watched it live, and I'm going to say something that is probably unpopular, and I mean it as no personal offense to you, Chief. You're a great chief, and I'm not saying any of this is a personal offense, but we all know that in Santa Clara, our elected chief is unique. It's the only city in all of California that elects its chief of police. And so there are benefits to being elected versus being appointed, and there are benefits to being appointed versus being elected. But we can't have it both ways. We really can't have it both ways. And in the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about compactness of salary relative to the assistant chief, and how in Chief Sellers' letter to the council that with Assistant Chief Winter's increase, that now the compactness, the delta between the chief's salary and the assistant chief's salary is now under 3%. In the corporate world, there are people, I know people in my company who make 50%, 100% more than their bosses. So the notion of compactness, it's not a guarantee that just because you're higher on the corporate ladder that you have to make 20% more than the person below you. That doesn't exist in the corporate world. You're paid based on the service that you provide and the value that you bring to the organization. And if organizations were paid based on hierarchy, then sure, have the person at the top paid the most. You guys are at the top, and you guys are making less than minimum wage for the hours that you put into this service. The job is a service job. You're running to be elected as a chief of police. You run to be elected as counsel. The clerk runs to be elected as clerk. It's not an opportunity to make a pay increase. It's an opportunity to serve your community. And yes, all of our wonderful women and men in uniform are serving the community and are getting paid for it. That's great. And we're not saying, but those are salaried employees. This is an elected position. And so if we wanted to pay people based on hierarchy, fine, let's do it. If we wanted to pay people based on the risk that they take every day when they put on their uniform, then the people with the desk jobs should be making less than the people who are actually the beat cops, who are putting their lives literally on the line. So this notion of compactness, this notion of that I should be paid more, honestly, with an elected chief, they should be making what they made before they were elected, and it should be fixed at that. Or if you want to go by based on what the assistant chief, they should be making exactly as the assistant chief, no more, no less.
Thank you, Hassan. Anyone else? Thank you. Welcome, Chief.
Oh, thank you. I am truly honored to be elected. It was my choice to be elected police chief, and I'm truly honored to serve this great community. Part of the salary, historically, like we mentioned back in March 20th, was that the salary of the police chief was tied to 9A. And I understand the laws have changed, and that's what the discussion was. And I really do appreciate the fact that on March 20th, you authorized the retro pay, and we were going to take care of it as moving forward. It was definitely an oversight on the benefit on my part. I did not realize that I was not getting the benefit. As the city manager mentioned, most of my pay stubs mentioned that I got the increase of management leave. Occasionally I got the health. I didn't pay close attention to the smaller amounts as we moved forward. But it was definitely an oversight on my part on March 20th. Otherwise, I would ask for salary and benefits. And I truly did think it was the whole packet to be equal to 9A. So that's basically my stance, and I would hope that you would support the alternative number 3 as we move forward, and hopefully in January or whenever the city manager can move forward to do the salary setting for the elected would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Mahan?
What I hope we don't forget is that it has been a long-established council policy. Not to say it's not time to change it, but it hasn't been changed. And the council policy was that the salary and benefits of the chief of police and other police management, don't forget that, it's other police management as well, will follow the negotiated agreement of Unit 9A. Same for the fire. So the fact that he's elected didn't make a difference. It was the fact that in the management employees don't negotiate collective bargaining agreements. It's the employees, the workers that negotiate, the collective bargaining units negotiate their contracts. Management in all departments follow what their collective bargaining units achieve through negotiations. And that's been a council policy. That's what the police management, including the chief, expect to happen, and that's what has happened. The glitch occurred through no fault of the council, through no fault of the chief, when the staff did not put it on the council agenda for approval. And that's the mistake we're trying to rectify. It's really pretty simple. And our new city manager is absolutely correct. She's not so new anymore, but when she came on board, she took action to rectify this mistake, and thus we had the March 20th meeting to correct that mistake. And I think the motion, in my mind, was intended to just give the chief and all the rest of the police management, but in this case the chief, all of the benefits that Unit 9A achieved in their collective bargaining agreement. I didn't make a distinction in my mind about salary and benefits. I just assumed in the motion that it would have been all of these things. And city manager, again, rightfully said, oh, wait a minute, it's you know, we got to dot all the i's and cross all the t's, and is bringing us back here tonight to dot those i's and cross those t's and add the benefit package along with the salary package. And I think that's all that's happening here. And it shouldn't be politicized, and it's, you know, I don't know why, well, like I say, it's just a matter of bringing it now to council meeting, public meeting for approval, which is what was required. City manager's rectifying this mistake, and I think we owe it to the chief to follow the council policy until that policy is changed, and we're working on that, and that will happen in the future. But until it does, I think we're sort of duty-bound to do the right thing here.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes, I just wanted to ask, because I did ask a question about the management leave, because one of the things, noting that the chief did receive that, and I thought I had heard some prior comments from the city attorney and perhaps even the city manager about that. It's not typical practice that for elected officials to receive the leave. That's why I asked that question, because I'm thinking, you know, I voted for the chief to get his back pay. I was hoping that that was going to be the end of it, but now things are continuing to spiral out, and you know, my concerns about what are the proper practices. And had you made the comment, or did I misunderstand that it's not typical practice for electeds to get those kind of leaves?
Yeah, with respect to the leaves, there's, as far as I can tell, I mean, I haven't called every jurisdiction in the country that has elected officials, but I have not been able to uncover any jurisdiction that has elected officials where elected officials, as part of their compensation, get accrued leave. In other words, you don't get vacation, you don't get sick leave, you don't get management leave, these things that have gone along with what Santa Clara has done. It's not to say it's illegal. It's not illegal. Santa Clara did not violate any law by doing that. It's just extremely atypical for, you know, it's apparently unique to this city that practice was created. The council does not get these leaves, and that's an example of that. It does seem typical, though, that, for example, like the sheriffs do get medical and retirement type leave. I believe they get retirement. I'm not sure, but I know they get other typical kind of HR type benefits. But it's the accrued leave and the ability, when you're no longer working, when you leave, to get paid out that leave as well. So this is another thing that's atypical for our elected officials to have.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to vote? On the action related to the motion is to approve the, Councilmember Mahan, can you please repeat your motion? I can't remember what option
It was to option 3. However, if it assists Councilmember O'Neill to modify the motion on accepting number 3, but deleting the 40 hours of leave, that would be for last year, right? Is that what we're saying? Or for this current contract? We have to see our way out of this conundrum.
Well, if we go with, because we would have to zero out or balance out the monies.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You know, yeah, because my concern is that the additional leave was already granted and used. And, you know, for this, you know.
No, but going forward, I don't know what it's just.
Could we please vote on the question that's on the motion that's on the table? And that motion fails 4-2.
So I would make another motion to then ask Councilmember O'Neill's assistance if we wish to approve the medical and dental benefits and delete the leave benefit if that's the issue, then I would be willing to make that motion.
Well, okay, so the motion failed. You're making another motion?
Yes.
And what is this next motion?
To approve the retroactive enhanced benefit for the medical and dental and other, let's see, what were the actual 9(8) understanding?
I would like to move on because I can't,
Madam Mayor, I
entertaining
believe
all
that
these
Councilmember
motions.
O'Neill may have,
I believe Councilmember O'Neill can speak for herself.
that's why
So do you
I'm
have a
asking-
motion that you would like to make?
that we approve the enhanced benefits other than the 40 hours of leave that were mentioned that Councilmember O'Neill was having this, having an issue with. I would also ask a question of staff. If we don't approve these enhanced benefits, what benefits does the chief have?
He has the benefits that were in effect with the previous MOU.
And what is the difference?
So the difference would be, if you can, let's see if we can go back to, basically the benefits would be reflective of in the white. So the health, that he would, the city's contribution for health would be $848.94 a month, and he would get no dental or vision contribution. And he would get 80 hours of management leave per year.
So the additional enhanced is an additional 40?
Correct, for the management leave, yes.
Management
For a
leave.
total of 120 hours per year.
Right. So then I would make that motion that we adopt alternative 3, but eliminate the additional 40 hours of management leave.
All right, that's a motion. Is there a second? And this is going to be our, I hope, our final motion. Is there a second?
I have a comment, Mayor.
Oh, Councilmember Colstead.
Thank you. I would disagree, I think, with the city attorney on this case. Number one, we've established a past practice over several police chiefs of granting management leave. Number two, there are only 59 elected law enforcement officials in the state of California, and I would submit to you that the majority of the sheriffs and the police chief are granted management leave as part of their contracts, and that's a legitimate and pretty much a standard benefit that law enforcement officials that are elected receive. I see that the HR director has explained to us that option 3 that's recommended by the staff only makes our police chief whole with his existing rules and regulations that govern his position. I get it that we are wanting to look at maybe establishing a salary setting committee for electeds and that, or commission, whatever you want to call it. And that may happen when the staff brings back the staff report on that item that we've asked for. But for now, I think option 3 recommended by staff is the logical one to select and to support.
However, that's already been defeated, which is why I'm trying to reach a compromise that perhaps can get passed.
So we have a motion. Is there going to be a second? If not, it's, okay, motion second on the motion.
Just let me ask another question then. So, but does this deal with, but leave has already been granted, so does that mean that leave has to be refunded? Under the motion?
Potentially, if that's your decision, yes, I think that we could probably arrange that with the chief. He has other accrued leave balances that we could adjust.
Okay, so if that's what the motion means, that the additional leave would be corrected, rescinded.
Yeah, yes, just as Phil has said.
Councilmember Mahan?
Yeah, I mean, yes, that would be implied in the motion. or
Okay,
included in the motion.
so there's a motion and a second. We're going to wait for Councilmember Davis to come back. Did she leave? So you can put the voting up. Is there any member of the public wanting to speak on this? Okay, have we done this already? Still here? I'm going to have to restate the motion when she comes back. Waiting for you. Could you please restate the motion, Councilmember Mayhew?
I'd ask the city clerk, she has it on the board.
Clerk.
So I have alternative number 3 with the exception of removing the 40 hours of leave.
And adjusting or seeking reimbursement, as the case may be.
Register your votes. That ties 3-3, so it doesn't pass.
Do this until we have a full council.
Motion, is there a second? Second. Okay. Motion second. On the motion? Oh, on that?
So I'd like to understand the mechanics of moving to continue an item, if it's going to come back even with a full council, if one of the two motions that were already made that failed with the current dais, new information needs to be presented before a defeated motion is brought back. So I'd like to understand the mechanics or the rationale behind continuing this till another council, just so you can get another vote on the same exact motion, where you need new information, and maybe that's a question of the city attorney if he would so indulge me on that question.
I think that it's a continuance, not a reconsideration. I would personally not like to waste more time on this, but
I think it's merely a rule of procedure that the council can vote. It can view it either as a motion to continue or to bring this back on another agenda, or, I mean, there was no decision made. Both motions failed. It's up to the council to decide whether they want to hear this again.
I personally don't, but okay, if there's a motion to continue, I'm just voting no, but could you please clear them? Thank you. We have so much other business to get through. We had two motions that failed. So the motion is to continue this item. Please register your vote. Motion fails 4-2. Okay, moving on. The next item we have is City Manager Director reports.
I just have a statement that I want to read to put in the record. Today I received an email containing a large set of documents for review by the city attorney and myself in connection with a refinancing being requested by the 49ers Stadium Company. The refinancing involves a series of transactions that are intended to allow Stadco to repay a term loan maturing next month. The refinancing does not change the authority's financing or any terms of the authority loans. We have received no notice of this transaction until today and have been requested that we turn this around by May 21st, and in some cases it requires board action, which would have to be scheduled for next Tuesday, meaning that all documents would need to be prepared for public disclosure by Friday. There is no possible way for us to meet their preferred deadline. I am disappointed by the management company's failure to notice and coordinate with me and the city attorney despite our many meetings and communications, and place this burden on us during a very busy time. We're literally trying to get the budget out this Friday. I have a duty to disclose this to the board. Financial oversight is extremely important to the Stadium Authority, and I am advising this so that the board is fully aware of the transactions that that Manco has requested of the city attorney and I under very short notice. I also want to share that I'm moving a couple things on the tentative agenda. There's, under May 15th, there's a series of revenue opportunities. There's 3 items, which would also be due this week. I'm going to be moving those to May 29th just so that we can better balance workload. And I would like to move up the Stadium Authority community engagement, return back to the board for a report out on the outcome of the community engagement program on June 12th. And with these changes, we'll be prepared to bring forward our community research on revenue opportunities in the July timeframe. So still very much in time to take action if there's interest for a November ballot. That's my report out.
All right, thank you very much on that. I skipped the reports of members and special committees. Is there anyone that would like to say anything?
Yeah, me.
Okay, Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I just wanted to go back to a statement that was made earlier this evening by Councilmember Mahan regarding the council taking action and supporting issues. And she said that she has never supported an issue in the past. And I just wanted to go on record to say that I went to Ballotpedia, where it specifically says that Mayor Patricia Mahan has gone on record to also state her support for the stadium and for the measure's placement on the ballot. The Santa Clara City Council endorsed the citizen initiative for the new stadium. According to Mayor Mahan, to me, this initiative process really puts it to the test. If 1/3 of voters want to put it on the ballot, then I find it compelling. So I just wanted to get that supported motions in the past. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I can't let that go unchallenged. That was to put an initiative on the ballot. It was not an endorsement. It was not an endorsement of the ballot measure. The council action tonight was to actually endorse the ballot measure and tell people to vote for it. So it's a very vast difference. Yes, it is,
Okay.
Council Member.
Okay, we're, thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you. The next item we have is, just keep going here, adjournment. Vice Mayor, I think we have an adjournment this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would like to close and adjourn in memory of Mrs. Ildefonsa Regadio Esposa, who was a longtime Santa Clara resident. Ildefonsa was born on January 23rd, 1923 in Santa Fe, San Marcelino, Zambales, in the Philippines. And in 1977, she moved to Santa Clara's north side, where she resided until her passing. Ildefonsa was a devoted wife, savvy businesswoman, exemplary mother and grandmother, and the matriarch of the Esposo family. She is survived by her loving husband of 74 years, 5 children, 17 grandchildren, and 21 great-grandchildren. Ildefonsa passed away in the early hours of yesterday morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember O'Neill, you have an adjournment as well.
Yes, I would like to ask that we adjourn this meeting in memory of Andrew William Fitch, who was a longtime resident here of Santa Clara. He was the son of Robert Fitch, who frequently has appeared before this council and planning commission and has worked frequently with our staff on land use issues. So Andrew was a magna cum laude graduate of the University of St. Thomas, St. Paul, Minnesota, with joint studies in journalism and Japanese, which he put to good use. Professionally, Andrew was a managing copy editor extraordinaire, as well as a respected journalist and analyst in the video game industry. He had many friends throughout his work in Northern and Southern California and across the online universe. He was born in San Diego, a direct descendant of Joaquin Moraga, the second in command of the 1776 Anza expedition, and of the storied Captain Henry Delano Fitch, the first Fitch in California in Old San Diego. He is survived and deeply missed by his twin brother Adam, his sister Sarah, mother Carol, father Robert, sister-in-law Deborah, fiance Mary, and a multitude of extended family. So in his honor, we would also, in memory, would like to adjourn this meeting.
Thank you. And on that, there's a motion to adjourn. Second? And a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. No opposition. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you. 12:30.